All right, everybody, we're back after a devastating exit to the Champions League on Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo. All the information underneath that you need. You saw the title of the video, the thumbnail, and as you see right below us, Milan lost yesterday, 1-0 in the second leg of the Champions League against Inter. We also lost the first leg, 2-0. First time we've been eliminated by an Italian team ever, Matt. First time Inter has knocked us out of the competition in the third try that they had against us. Overall sentiments after that. I didn't want to record yesterday because I wanted things to kind of die out a little bit, get very emotional over it. I wasn't as emotional. I already accepted our fate much earlier. But yeah, listen, this was a hell of a UCL campaign, but it's just such a bitter taste in the end because of who eliminated us. I think if it was Benfica knocking out Milan in the semifinal, I think you get a different vibe from the fan base. But since it is Inter, and the past 4 matches we have faced Inter, we have not scored a goal on them, and they have beaten us every single time. Supercoppa, Serie A, Champions League. Overall thoughts on the tie.
It was lost in the first leg. I mean, I think, obviously when you commit fatal errors against any team, we've seen Milan do this against the lowest of the low teams. The game against Cremonese, when you're not scoring goals, you have to be perfect. They commit a defensive error that gives up the goal, right? And when you do it against a team like Inter, they're going to make you pay. They're going to capitalize on it, and they're going to score. And the first leg, sure enough, 2 goals within the span of 3 minutes. I think 8th-minute goal and 11th-minute goal.
First 11 minutes. Yeah.
I mean, you're staring down the barrel of a 2-0 deficit 11 minutes in at home, technically, with a bunch of your fans there, and that's where you really lost the game. Because I think you had to go into the second game, you had to be perfect, and Milan aren't playing anything close to perfect football. They're not playing anything close to peaking football. Whereas on the other side, you have Inter who they're streaking. They have 4 straight victories against Milan. Milan hasn't scored a goal in any of those games dating back to the 1-0 deficit in the league. Then you have the Super Cup, and then you have these 2 games, right? Like when you can't score goals, when you're not defensively sound and preventing the other team from scoring goals, when you're playing sloppy football, this is what you get, right? Even in the second leg, we had a couple moments through Brahim and Leao had some really good movements. Like we could tell he wasn't as explosive, it wasn't as sharp as you'd want. He wasn't 100%, but the fact that we had him on the field, gave some fans some hope. But a lot of these players, they really showed and proved further that they're not cut out for this stage. And I tweeted something last night because I think I wanted to kind of somewhat gather my thoughts. I don't want to put something out there that wasn't like true to how I felt, but was rather reactionary and in the moment. And when I sort of like thinking about it, there was something during the broadcast that just kind of like struck a chord with me. And it's simple, but I think, we always listen to Matteo Benetti on the call and Andres Cordero. And Matteo pretty much said, it's a luxury for Simone Inzaghi to bring off Marcelo Brozovic and Lukaku from the bench.
Yep.
And you see those types of quality of players, and Robin Gosens, right? Like a player that they brought for 20, 25 million.
I think it was 30.
Yeah. 30 million, right? Off the bench. And you have DiMarco, and you have Darmian, you have Dumfries. Like they have 4 deep at that wing back position, right? So when you have strength in numbers like they do, when you are peaking like they are, when you have Lukaku playing more so like the striker that was at Inter under Conte, and you throw all those things into the pot, Milan had to play a 10 out of 10 game to beat them, and they just didn't come anything close to that. And when you have guys like Junior Macias playing games from the start, and those are the guys you're relying on to unlock a team and to make a difference. No disrespect to Macias, but we know what he is, we know what he isn't, and he isn't a player of this caliber.
That shot that you saw in the first leg from him, if you even want to call it that, was abysmal. Tonali does a great job. Tonali created the 2 best chances for Milan in this tie, and it was met with poor finishing from Brahim Diaz and then Junior Macias. 2 players indicative of where you are. A player on a loan for very cheap wage-wise, and then you have Junior Macias, who was just a delivery driver 5 years ago, not even. And at that point, you got to know the limitations of certain players. And again, Brozovic arguably would be Milan's best midfielder. Lukaku clearly would be the best striker on Milan as well. And like you mentioned, those are substitutes for Inter. On top of everything else that they have, I think Benacer going down was massive for this. You need a performance from a Krunic. Macias is in there. I don't understand when you're losing 50-50 balls on a consistent basis, your best ball winner is on the bench, and that's Alexis Salamakers. Someone who's actually been in form relative to the rest of the squad in recent weeks, and he's not met with a start. Macias had his chance in the last leg. I actually feel for Salamakers. I thought he deserved a better chance than what he was given in this tie.
Yeah.
I think Pioli did have some things working against him, but it's not like he did anything to improve this. You also have a Rafael Leao. There's no way that he was 100%, and even then, it's not an excuse. Simone Inzaghi and Inter played this so well. You pin Leao towards the midway point, and you say, beat us with your leg. That's not 100%, because that's the only way you can beat us, and even then, we're still going to double you. And if we double you, you're not going to be able to cross. You're not going to be able to create with anyone else, because Brahim Diaz was losing at halftime. I said this yesterday. 3 out of 12 balls that he lost on ground duels, 25% success rate. You cannot have that in the Champions League. You cannot have that, especially when you're down 2-0. And then at that point, we see 1-0. Matt, we also see a part of this match in which Pioli doesn't put on the subs until much later.
If the game's done and dusted at that point.
Mike Grella was talking about on the broadcast, he's like, 60-something minute, I don't think I make that move yet. I disagree with Grella in that sense. No, you have to do it. You're creating nothing. It's not like if Milan had some chances, they were close, and then maybe they get one in.
Goal and you just needed one goal.
Exactly. They were down 2-0, and Inter was on the front foot. Inter was on the front foot. Away goals or not, it's momentum. I do think, however, this was a success. I think this UCL campaign was a success, Matt, when it comes down to it. Because you want to know why. If you said to someone before this season, we're not talking about Serie A, Coppa Italia, anything else, strictly the Champions League. Yeah. And we said this in our previews. We said, hey, if Milan can get to the round of 16, fantastic. I'm okay with that. Whatever happens from there on out. We made it to a semifinal. That's phenomenal. We haven't been there in 16 years. It's a big deal. And also, 5 years from now, instead of the reactionary moments we're having from the fan base, 5 years from now, look back on the squad list and see the players that were playing in these two legs compared to what we see on Inter on paper. Milan don't have the quality for that. The director saying it prior to the match, I think the players are never going to say it because that's just admitting what they are, and that's not right. But the manager is saying it to an extent. I think Maldini is clearly saying it in two different languages, but I still give kudos to Pioli for this. They had him prepared. They advanced. He still made some defensive adjustments. It's Serie A that we know what the main issue is, and that's a totally separate video. But this campaign is success in your eyes?
The Champions League is a success. I mean, obviously the way we bowed out and the fashion with which we didn't show up, and we didn't really play anything close to what you would want from a Milan side. Like, this is the Champions League, right? Like, this is a competition that is synonymous with this club, synonymous with the success we've had over the years, right? Like, you're wearing the 7 patch on your arm for a reason, right? So at the very least, if what you lack in quality is prevalent and it's obvious, we all know that they lack the quality in multiple areas. We've known this since the summer, when the summer wasn't adequate enough. But at the very least, you got to at least, I always, we harp on this so many times, right, Martino? At the least you can give is the effort. And I'm not saying these guys aren't trying, but for us to be completely outplayed over 2 legs, for us to be completely outplayed over 4 straight games against this team, it just goes to show you how much we've fallen off in this calendar year. And, it is a success in the sense that, the expectation was to just build upon what we had last year. We were in the Champions League. We had a tough group. Maybe we were, we kind of had some questionable refereeing decisions go against us. We bounce back. We get out of the group.
Still the youngest team in the competition,
A job well done, right? Like, a job well done to get out of the group. If you bowed out to a Tottenham, a really bad Tottenham, I don't think anyone would have been like, man, this is a failure. Like, okay, you still got the UCL money, the benefits of that. You made some steady progression. But then you overthrow Napoli, right? And you get to a semifinal, to your point, and it's got to be, at least financially, considered a victory. And the progress is there. And I'm going to say this too. Right? Because, the financial side, we want to get someone. I know we want to get someone on that, but kind of bring in to speak to that further and the benefits of it, and ultimately start to kind of assemble what the financial gain was from this season in all competitions and where we currently stand going forward with maybe what we could potentially spend, right, in our finances. But there's going to be a group of players in this squad that lost yesterday that are going to really grow from this. Okay. There's going to be players that quite clearly are not going to grow from this, that are not going to have a position in this club going forward.
Cost them their job.
Right. There's going to be players that, and you can tell, right? I'm not going to go every player, but Sandro Tonali, right? Like, Sandro Tonali, he gets it. He's playing for his favorite club, his boyhood club. He's on the fast track to becoming a captain. If it's not Theo Hernandez soon, it's going to be Sandro Tonali, right?
I wish it was him, yeah.
So that's a player that gets it. Like, he ain't going to sulk, but the way he lost with pride, he lost with dignity, and he lost with respect. He going over there and giving Barella the hug. Like, this guy gets what stage he's on, and he's going to grow from this. And I think people, are looking at a lot of these players in this team. They're going to say, "Oh, Barella outplayed him, and this guy outplayed him, and this guy outplayed him." I mean, you're having a lot of players on that Inter team that have a lot of Champions League experience. Lukaku, all those years. You're having Edin Dzeko with City, Roma a couple years. Like, you, top to bottom, you have players that have experience in that team.
Yep.
There's players that aren't inexperienced. I will say that. The Bastonis, they don't have 60, 70 UCL appearances.
Even then, but he's been in the UCL for 3-4 years now.
But they've been a consistent team in this competition, and they've made some pretty decent runs playing against some really strong teams in the group of Real Madrid and Barcelona, right? So the point I'm trying to make is there's going to be players that really evolve and take this experience and grow from it. Theo Hernandez, Tonali, Benacer, Giroud, he's been here many times. But that's what my hope is. A big takeaway from this is, at the very least, these players are going to evolve. They're going to get that experience, and it's going to take their game to the next level. What this semifinal told me, though, amongst anything else, is one, it's literally the most legitimate form and example of why we need to spend, right? Because you're on the mainstay of a semifinal. You have, there's no wiggle room. There's no, we had this result go against us. We had this injury. No, you're in the Champions League semifinal, and we're lucky we didn't get to a final and get absolutely smoked by City or Madrid, right? So that's kind of how I feel about it. There's a success in the sense that we got far, we got the money, and certain players are going to grow from this. But yeah, looking at this team sheet, we're going to look back and think wow, credit to Pioli for getting this team this far, for all his faults and his decision making. I mean, you look to the bench and you're like, who does he got in his defense? Who does he have? I know he didn't make the subs when he needed to, but you look at who he has.
Well, this is what I wanted to bring up with the next topic. So, next topic of conversation now is basically the director and leader's comments, and that's Paolo Maldini. We saw it prior to the first leg where he was commenting about, look how far we've come. And I think the really important comment made was that we are in the competition and level of where Manchester City, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, and Inter are at. But we know we're overachieving at this moment, is essentially what he was saying. And to be in the semifinals, you have to invest more. Matt, this is what a team that made the Champions League semifinal after winning the league title last season added in the summer and January. This is what was given. Charlie de Ketelare, we know this situation. 32 million euro. That's essentially everything that they got from advancing to the Champions League again, or qualifying for it. And then on top of it, the Scudetto prize. They weren't going to get Sven Botman. That was a pipe dream, okay? They weren't going to be able to compete with the wages of Newcastle. I do understand some faults if you want to point into the direction about the Enzo Fernandez situation with waiting for Renato Sanchez. Fair enough. But look at this. Every other deal, there was zero ownership and zero funds to use. Every other deal is a loan or a low-cost deal to try and add to the squad. Astor Franks, he's a teenager. He joins. He's a loan option. That's not really someone that you could really depend upon. Florenzi, dependable, but always injured. Macias, we've already highlighted him. Malek Chow, probably going to end up being a phenomenal deal for Milan. I think he's already proven to be worth that money and probably tripled that already. Honestly, I think he's worth over 20 million as a center back. Davis Vasquez, that was the January edition. They didn't even use him. I didn't even see him practice. I think he was there once. We saw some newspaper report on his deal. That was it. Divock Origi, very massive flop. Serginho Dest, fourth choice right back. Also, higher wages than anyone on this list. by the way. So mind you, that is what Milan was working with. Whether you agree with what Maldini and Masada were doing with that, Kolomuani was in the fixture for it. But this is right. I think people need to understand they have a wage bill smaller than Roma. They have a wage bill smaller than Inter and Juve. Juve has double the wage bill. Inter's nearly double that, at least 1.5 times that. That matters, Matt. That really does. And I think people not seeing that, I think it's unfair to where management is. And I also think it's unfair to even Pioli to an extent, because you're also saying to yourself, they lost Frank Kessie. No one's talking about this enough. No one is. That is a starting midfielder. If we really want to go back to it and talk about what happened to Milan in the past 2 legs, Matt, we were essentially down 2 starting midfielders from last season, from when we were playing Inter very well.
Yeah.
And the biggest mismatch on the field yesterday, aside from them being more prolific up front, was the midfield, and especially the depth. Milan are dealing with Astor Franks is probably third or fourth option. Tommaso Pobega, another one. It's not good enough. Adley's not even considered. And Krunic is starting there. And we said this last video. I said it with Sharma. Krunic is okay as a fourth or fifth option. But as your starter in a Champions League semifinal, you're probably not in great shape and not in the position to win the Champions League, like Maldini is mentioning. Now, ultimately, we don't know what's going to happen. We have some potential moves happening this summer, and I do have a list of some potential summer departures. This is from GDS and what they've had laid out so far. And honestly, with some of these names, it wouldn't be surprising. Backup goalkeeper, absolutely useless. All these guys right here, the top 3, are making considerable amounts of money in terms of wages. Okay? So this is like around 4 to 4.5 million net right here. The top 3 doing nothing. We could even go higher up. Matt, we could go to Bakayoko. Bakayoko has more than any midfielder prior to Benacer's extension, which are going to kick in. Okay? So now Benacer is the highest paid. But before that, it was Bakayoko. Those 5 players right there, the 6, the 7, all those players do not play. They're getting paid. They're not even producing. Even then, we go for... Honestly, like I keep going down the list, Matt. Who's contributing this season for Milan? Who is the biggest contributor here? It might be Junior Macias.
What's crazy too is, you mentioned Maldini's comments, and he had some really damning comments on Origi. Like he name dropped. He's like, he mentioned him by name, and usually directors and coaches, like, they'll speak briefly on a player and they try to frame it in a way that's positive and that's, hey, we know he's good quality, blah 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 blah. Like, Maldini went into pretty good detail and he was very descriptive of Divock Origi and what he's been lacking. And, the way it was broken down, I think Milan Reports put out the translation. There was, a bunch of different sites, but that was the first one I saw it. Yeah. And I was just reading down the line, and, they talked about the Ketelare. We all know that, right?
Yes.
He mentioned the similarities between, like, Tonali's first season and all that stuff. We get that. Mm-hmm. But when you bring Divock Origi, who's an experienced Champions League player who's played in very good institutions like Liverpool, he's played at the international level for Belgium, maybe not so much lately. When this guy has a pretty good body of work and is a player that has had really career-defining moments. Like, he joined Milan as, like, somewhat of a cult hero coming from Liverpool. Everyone was like, this guy scores major goals. He doesn't score a lot of goals for us, but when he gets that goal, he finds himself in those positions and he makes the difference. And you spend, $3.5 million a season on this guy, and we had 2 goals from him, 3 goals in all competitions, something like that. I know he's been injured. I get all those things, and we talked about other players that maybe we chose to bypass over him, and it's all woulda, shoulda, coulda, right? But I think when you look at certain players, like, all right, we didn't get really virtually any production from any of the players that we either signed on a full-term deal or we loaned in, right? Macias had a couple goals, whatever. De Ketelare, just 1 assist. Divock Origi, I think, had a goal against Sassuolo.
Two goals, 1 assist.
Which is a consolation goal. Divock Origi, I think that was.
And then one against Monza and a 4-1 victory.
Right, so 2 meaningless goals if you really think about it.
Yep.
So that's where I tend to lean back towards but Pioli really didn't have much to work with. I know it's down to him to instituting those players and making sure that they thrive and develop. Yeah. The way Adley didn't do anything, 0 progression from him or CDK. Like, it was just the perfect disaster of a summer window. And
Yeah.
people are saying, well, Maldini chose suspended in this way. I think in this climate, in this market, it's very difficult to make a major impact with 50 million, given how many needs we had. You had Romagnoli leaving. He was what, your third best center defender last year,
And even then
and he's
he was just
experienced and in the right system, he does play well. Look at Lazio, what he's doing there. Frank Kessie, Mr. Dependable. The guy's plays what 34 to 35 games every season. He was at Milan.
honestly felt like 38 every year.
every game. You can pencil him in, he's going to give you the full game. Champions League, league play, quick turnaround. That guy's there. So they didn't replace anybody, and even the guys they bought, they got nothing from. That's down to Pioli. That's down to ownership. That's down to Mazzara. Everyone owns that failure of a market. We get all that. So that's what kind of brings me back to the whole conversation of the Champions League, and it's like, oh, well, why didn't he bring in this guy? People complaining. Yeah. Why didn't he bring in Salamakers? I'm like, nothing for nothing, but like, how far have we stooped so low that like we're begging for Salamakers to come in and make the difference in a Champions League semifinal? That's how dire things are, right? So I try and not be this whole big Pioli hater. He has his faults. Maldini has its faults, right? We love Maldini, but the reality of the situation is this. He was moving a little slow in certain instances when it came to Sanchez and to end the Enzo deal and the CDK deal, which attributed to the fact that we were able to get CDK in much later than we want. Right?
It was in August, right?
Adapting to a new league, he didn't really have much opportunity as far as minutes are concerned to really mesh and gel with these players. So it was just a major disaster. I'll say this. If Milan somehow, some way, I don't care how it happens, whether it be on their own doing and their own performances on the field with some help from other teams or Juventus getting that point deduction. If we somehow get into top four of Pioli and he doesn't last the entire next season, assuming he is the coach going into next season, people are going to look back and say, wow, Milan got top four. They made a semifinal run. And that was their squad in this two semifinal legs. People are going to look at that. That's like when people judge Max Allegri. Oh, he was terrible. Like the last couple years at Milan were terrible. I'm like, this guy's beating Pep Guardiola's Barca with like Suli Montari, like certain players that you're like, who are these people?
Literally the greatest player of all time had to stop them. That's what it was at the peak of his powers to stop those teams. We remember it. We were getting carried by El Shaarawy one half, and then the next half of the season was Mario Balotelli. Yeah. They were splitting. It was like 14 goals for El Shaarawy. Mario was like 13. A lot were pens. Who cares? But again, you're right. But look at this. It was also interesting with Maldini's comments as well about the Dybala stuff and how CDK needs time to grow. And this is the type of project and player that he was having. But he was essentially saying if it was up to him, he would actually have Paulo Dybala. Because some of the signings that Maldini first made when he arrived or getting full control past Leonardo was Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Simon Kjaer. And going for those older proven profiles. To me, I think that was like always a smart move. I think you have to have those type of additions. It sucks. To me, I think what people are talking about when they're saying with spending and the net spend, I think it's stupid. I think you're not looking at the bigger picture of things and what at the window to actually look at, okay? The real window when this project is and Maldini's project was when it's him and Masada and there's no Boban, there's no Leonardo. That's the actual project that was started when it was with Pioli and they give him a full summer. That summer when they bring in Teo Hernandez, Benacer, that's that project. That's this project.
That was Gianpaolo, yeah.
It's not Leonardo trying to save face for FFP. It's not Fossobelli who are recklessly spending. You have to put more in. If Roma are taking risks, it's benefiting them. Inter took massive risks and it's benefiting them. Even to an extent, Juve. To stay afloat and keep qualifying for the Champions League, Juve spend and spend and spend, even if they're not in great financial position. Realistically speaking, outside of Napoli, long-term finances, there isn't actually a club in better shape than Milan is. But Milan do not act the way that some fans want them to, including myself. I'll be honest. I like taking more risks. I agree with Maldini. I didn't necessarily hate the summer of the Chinese. I just hated who spent the money. I thought the people who were spending the money were the problem. I also think the manager was the problem. I don't see that with this. I really don't. I do. Pioli deserves to lose his job if that comes down to it. If you miss top four, and you crash out. I'm sorry. I think a lot of it was on him. I think his poor decisions in games. I think his over rotations of players. I think his lack of identifying players' positions. I mean, Yassine Adli comes on. He's showing life. He's showing something. But we're in May. That's a problem. I think at the end of the day is that you're right. If Milan somehow get luck, Matt, and they're in the top 4, they're saved. I think everybody should stay at that point. I do think someone has to fall on the sword if this happens. But yeah, I think now is kind of the time to outlook for the summer. And what are you really, to wrap it up quickly and finish this off? Well, there is a rumor that Kamada from oh my God, drawn for Frankfurt, is a free agent. And DiMarzio was just reporting before we started recording this, is that he has agreed and wants to come to Milan, but Milan have to make the decision themselves. Do they want him? And Matt, I can't even express to you enough on how much of a no-brainer this is. Kamada on a free, or you pay 15 to 22 million for Brahim Diaz plus the wage increase. No, thank you. Give me the free transfer of a proven player, slot him in, use that money you were potentially thinking of Brahim Diaz, use it elsewhere, because I can't have that happen here. Because if we miss top 4, then your budget is really minuscule relative to what you would have hoped it to be. Do you move with that? What's the position of need? Is it a midfielder? Because Benacer also out 6 months, by the way, at least. So that's not until we see sometime in November. So Milan are still going to start next season with just Tonali as their best midfielder, the current situation. So is it midfielder? Is it striker? Where do you want them to move in this direction outside of the Kamada?
It's got to be up front. I think, you have to start preparing for life after Olivier Giroud. I think he had 20 goals and assists combined this year in all competitions so far. I think he's got 8 and 5 in the league. He's actually had a really good Champions League. I think he's had 5 goals in the Champions League, a couple assists. So this guy's still a dependable player in the sense that he could deliver you moments. He's a good hold-up player. He brings players into the game and allows guys to push forward, and it really kind of helps mend this kind of shattered attack bar Rafael Leao, right? So you have him for another year, right?
Yeah.
You need to get a center forward. You need to get someone that can deliver goals. Milan needs to find another goal scorer in this team and help spread out and help alleviate some of that pressure that Rafael Leao is going to continue to face when he's blanketed by multiple defenders. And this is a telling stat. And these are 2 telling stats from 2 players that I actually stumbled upon more so when I was doing some Serie A fantasy stuff.
Okay.
Nzola from Spezia has 13 goals this year.
More than any Milan player?
More than any Milan player in the league for a relegation team, right? And Boulaye Dia from Salernitana. Nice player. I think he's on loan from Villarreal at Salernitana, Senegal international, 26 years old. He's had his career year there. He has, I think, 15 goals and 5 assists. I know, granted, he had a hat trick against Fiorentina a couple weeks ago. There are players that Milan could get at a relatively affordable price that can deliver you and produce some goals. But it's truly telling how Milan still don't score enough goals. We know they create chances, but when it's Rafael Leao and Giroud, who has the next highest amount of goals? I'd love to know the stat. Is it Brahim Diaz with 6 goals? Tonali has, I think, 4. What is the goal scoring chart right now for Milan? It's I think Leao,
Giroud, Brahim Diaz.
And Brahim is what, 5, 6 goals?
Yes. Milan, I don't think have had a Serie A goal scorer get over 15 since Carlos Bacca. I don't think Zlatan was there or healthy enough for a full season since he left the first time. You're not getting any production. And even to back you up further with this and your statistical analysis of this, Milan actually create the most chances behind Napoli in the top 4 or top 6 teams.
It doesn't mean
anything. They are the worst finishing team relative to the amount of chances that they create. And we said this last year. And again, when you lose Zlatan for most of the year, there's another decent finisher that you had. Rebic is not contributing or finishing, someone that has been there. Macias regressed with the finish.
Got nothing from Origi.
I am technically Giroud regressed, but he's also older and he can't be playing every week. I think you have to sell a Colombo. I think you have to sell a Tommaso Pobega. I think because you're getting plus Valenza out of this, you're getting clear profit. And then on top of it, you get money back from the Pessina sale, which would be nice because Monza is staying up this season. So kudos to that. You get 50% of that resale from Atalanta. There is some money to be recuperated. Ownership needs to come up with some of theirs, and then whatever else you get from going to the semifinal. And if somehow they make top four, then I think Milan have a better budget. I don't think they're making top four. They play Sampdoria on Saturday. We'll see what happens there. Unfortunately and ultimately, I don't see a world in which they have a budget over 50 million pre-sales. I don't. I think you're going to get something close to that. And 50 pre-sales without top four is not the worst, but they're going to have to sell players. And I think that number can reach somewhere into the 70 to 80 range. I think you can get at least 10 million or something, right, for Pobega at the very least. I think you can get like maybe like five.
You're not
Colombo?
getting anything from Macias if you do let him go. You're not
No,
getting much of
Rebic.
anything for Rebic.
You get a couple million and it all adds up at the end.
I get that, and that's fair, but it's one of those things where I look at how the market is shaping up, and realistically, right, getting back to what I just said, like, okay, what's our most dire need? Like, if Kamada comes in and he helps reinforce, that sort of area of our team, we need a forward, right? We've been harping on this for how long? When we were doing Milan reports, we were saying 50 million for Vlahovic is too much, and I'm like, I'd kill for Vlahovic in this team. I know people have been giving him shit at Juventus, but the fact of the matter is, the guy still has double-digit goals. He still is lethal. In this team, he would score 15 goals at least. I can almost guarantee that. Absolutely. Because the way we generate chances, the way we play a little bit more aggressive style. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at this and thinking, hey, if we do have 50 million, realistically, are we getting a player that can make the difference up top for 20 million? Knowing that we have multiple needs in this team.
If they do, it's another project.
But
basically, right?
Okay, so you have Colombo has an option with Lecce, and I think Milan has the first. They can.
They're gonna buy him back. Yeah,
right.
It's been reported.
Lasetic is on loan. Who's to say this guy's even going to get minutes from
failure of a loan? I think his team's in the relegation zone in Austria.
He's going to come back.
Closer.
He's going to come back. He's going to train in the preseason, and then he's going to get a loan to some Serie A team or some Serie B team. Probably.
Yep.
Right?
Correct.
Right? So now you have Ibrahimovic gone. So now the really only quote-unquote like sure thing player we know is going to be with this club next year in that area is a 36-year-old Giroud. Because Origi might be leaving if they can get anything for him, or if they can say we'll sell him for $5 million.
Maybe somewhere in Turkey. Honestly, I'm not even trying to dumb down that league. It's like a legitimate possibility. It is terrible. Yes, I know. That's why I'm infuriated all the time, and why there's no spending with it. There's some salvageable thing, like literally Serginho Dest and Timothy Bakayoko. Roughly, it's at least 7 million net off the books, just the two of them. That's incredible to me. That's insane. That just with this wage bill and how I'm trying to find the right word for. I guess you could say stingy in a sense. How we could be with the wage bill, because it's very hard for us to really pay out players sometimes. But we agreed on those two. I'm just very interested to see what the approach is and who's on the same page. We have to see what happens over these final 3 games. Ultimately, Milan need more goal scorers. They need more midfielders. I think they're going to sit a little bit tight if they make an adjustment at the back line. Probably a backup left back. Maybe one more center back. Get rid of Matteo Gabbia as well. I think there's a market where you could sell Gabbia to another Serie A side that's towards the mid to bottom half of the table that would be interested in this Italian center back. I don't think he garners you that much, but eventually you're going to have to make some moves, put some Italians within the squad. Is there any other final thoughts headed into these final 3 matches, or just something else that we might have missed out on that you want to discuss? Real quick. Well, we do have questions, actually. We do have questions.
Yeah, let's get a couple questions in.
I'll get the questions for you. And this will be a very interesting one. We had a couple of them. Fabio Lucarini probably had the most depressing one, but he said, was Milan the worst the weakest semifinalist in CL history?
I mean, I don't have the list in front of me.
Yeah, I don't have it. Yeah.
But the way we've played, the team we put out there, the form we were in heading into these games, and you put it on a different level when it's against your hated rival. And Milan hasn't lost in this stage against an Italian team in their history. Yeah. It feels like they're in they're the worst team, just because like you look at the team sheet and you're like, this is a semifinal team.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah.
ugh.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but man, like at least in
It's
recent
got to be
memory,
up there.
like
It's got to be up
I
there.
can't put any other team that's close
Yeah.
to this.
Demo was asking, we kind of already answered it. What do we think happens with no CL next year? Just
Limited budget. I think if we
yeah,
don't get Champions League, I think a Europa League berth almost gives Jerry and the ownership like a cop out to not spend. Well, we have the Europa League. You mentioned it on your recording with Sharma, I think, right? You said something to the effect, or maybe we were talking. I can't remember, but we basically said like, they there's truth to what he was saying, Jerry.
Yeah. Yeah, I was
Right?
talking about his quote that he said, "Yeah, my competitive juices are flowing, but it's not lost on me that we need to qualify for the
Right.
Champions
Like
League next year."
he's not
Which
naive to
means
what that.
I love to win, but we also need financially to be in the right spot, and that means qualifying for top 4. And if that's not there, listen, people want to say, "Oh, no, you have to hear it verbatim, like true, like black and white." It's like you could read in between the line, fellas. Okay, the director is saying that they need proper investment. The owner is saying, "Well, we need to see." You decide for yourselves, but you have the words in front of you. Dre says, in an alternate universe, Elliott never sold Milan. They still have board members on. They retain a percentage of the team. Elliott still have influence. They control what was happening with the team last summer because they did own the team. They just chose not to invest any further. That's on their own volition. But I don't think it changes much of anything, Dre. I think the sale is what it is, and they wanted to capitalize as soon as they possibly could after a title-winning campaign, and they sold them for a record fee and have a percentage that they'll get even more in the future, whether they choose to do so in that sale. Dappy was asking about Maldini's interview after the match. We talked about all that, and that's basically it. I don't have any other questions or any other topics to discuss. We're nearly 40 minutes into this. We appreciate everybody that tunes in. You can go follow Matt and his work at Matt_Santangelo on Twitter. Bunch of stuff regarding fantasy, articles with Football Italia, obviously doing this stuff here. State of Play podcast has gone on in a little bit.
We'll get. I think we'll do maybe do some stuff.
We have to when we have that.
Maybe to start next season or like the summer, but for now it's kind of tough.
We'll have to wind on down there. But yeah, follow you on all that stuff. Milan Brothers as well. You run that with your brother Nick. And you follow me. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Like, comment, subscribe. Fabio, thanks for watching. Last time you commented on that. Thanks to all the other Inter fans. We're close to 2,000 followers on the account. We're about 90 subs or so away. So it's a nice milestone to have. I've kind of been working at this for a little while now. And then again, obviously, Instagram clips will go on there, the Twitter as well. Everything's Martino Puccio. I'm the only one that has this name that covers Milan as far as I know. So that's the person to go and click on. Any other final says? We play Sampdoria on Saturday. By the way, I don't get why we don't get moved to Sunday. Inter plays on Sunday. The Europa League teams get to play on Monday. I don't understand why Serie A has scheduled Milan on Saturday against the relegation side, but whatever. That's just me being very annoyed with everything. Final words, or that's it?
I'm not going to congratulate Inter like our owner did. I will say big ups to Uncle Sharma for coming on. I know I tweeted this out, but we always appreciate collaborating with, we had Daniel Russo, we had Sharma come on to get different perspectives.
Nick Diani, Sean McIntosh.
Yep. Yeah, we've had a lot of different fans on. So, we're Milan fans through and through. We all get that, but, we're cordial. I'd like to consider us to like, we love Milan, but like we can have cordial debate and civil discourse with different fans and a really like chaotic, toxic environment on social media where like fans kind of curse each other out and get into these spats. It's nice being able to get like different perspectives from other clubs, and I just want to quickly thank Uncle Sharma for making the time for us, and again for the work he does. He does phenomenal work for Inter. So make sure you guys go subscribe to his YouTube channel.
Yes, and almost forgot. Art Morelli, thank you for the shirt. I bought it. You didn't give it to me, but the shirt, it's very nice. The material is pretty good. I just want to get a picture of it up because I think the back is really cool. If you're a fan of kind of oldie cartoons, this is the vibe that it gives. on the back. I think it's cool. It's unique. There's not many merchandise out there for Milan in general. I know Milan Club Dublin, shout out to them, by the way. They do fantastic work all the time. Look out on Twitter, by the way, if you're interested in that shirt and purchasing it. Art had that. I think it's Red Sauce Media, but I'll try and find the link. Art, shout out to you once again. Congrats to Napoli on winning the Scudetto.
Also, shout out
it.
to the supporter clubs that have really helped us to grow our content.
Milan Club NYC, as always.
NYC,
Franco,
the guys Franco, just to name one of the people that
Dublin always showing
Dublin,
love.
Milan Club Philly with Dave, super great people that love this
Chicago.
club from all over the world. There's so many different groups growing. I know Milan Club Phoenix, Milan Club Miami. There's
Milan Weekly Podcast, Marcello.
Milan Weekly Podcast.
We love you guys. Fabio, Gio, with Coast to Coast, Sempre Milan friends, and the work I do with them.
Absolutely.
They always give everybody a platform. Listen, a rising tide raises all ships, and hopefully that ship will be Milan in the coming weeks. Not all hope is lost. I have been irrational lately with confidence, so we'll see what happens over these next 3 matches. Really appreciate it. If you guys just like, subscribe, share, retweet, like everything, like I said. We're doing really well on views and appreciate that. I will hopefully want to get live streams soon again, so we can have that kind of live reaction. We'll see if we could do something Saturday against Sampdoria, but we will be doing pre-recorded stuff for the time coming. And the Rafael Leao extension, we will be trying to do a video on that very soon. Otherwise, take care, everyone.